with context that when they come as all these different sets of couples, they are going to separate from their partner and have an opportunity to date somebody else during that time frame.
What?
I just don't see how me dating someone else is gonna give me clarity about us. I don't get that.
Ultimately, they're saying either you marry me or I'm gone type
So
of
that's
thing.
it.
Hey, goodbye.
Because for me, if I had a daughter, I would want her to be more concerned about what is driving his decisions than whether or not he's asked the question.
Right.
That's going to reveal where he's at emotionally.
Right.
And you kind of want to get behind that.
Well, I feel like you've had enough time to decide whether you want to marry me or not. So I get why people do it, but I also think that it can be a form of relationship sabotage. It kind of force a person against the wall. And I don't know anyone that makes really great decisions when you're up against the wall.
I've been sitting here thinking about all the things you do to me, how you make me feel. I'm wondering if it's the same for you.
Gotcha. Hey, Otos, what's up?
Yeah. Oh, hold on.
Okay, sure.
I'm sorry. This is a new toy we just got this.
Yeah, a new little what is it called again?
It's an audio interface.
And this guy, he loves tech. So, just added all that.
Even though I quite don't understand how to use it, but I know how to use this, but
I'm dead. How many times are you about to do this?
I don't want to mess up anybody's ears. So I'm gonna leave it alone.
I'm dead. But we're back for another episode.
For sure.
We're so excited to have you all here again. To dig into another topic.
Ooh.
And but we're going to start off a little bit different this time.
We are.
With a little new segment. So
okay, let's do this. No, I'm excited about this segment in a weird way. Because I think that like when it comes to at least me and my friends, right? We have a way that we converse with each other, a way that we carry ourselves, But I think that when we're with our significant others, our wives, we have a different side of us. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? I remember I first got exposed to it during Scandal. Scandal's like, I didn't know that I'm like, I don't really want to watch that show, but I saw you were interested. And so
right. Scandal was my joint.
That was her joint. That was her joint. So, I'll take a look. I'll take a peek. Not really interested.
Right.
Man, that show was so interesting. You find yourself watching shows you wouldn't usually watch. I'm watching the news, just programs and stuff like that. And then when y'all come home, y'all tell us your stories about work, we be getting into it. No, she didn't. Oh, no, he didn't. You know what I'm saying? It's just story times in general. So we're going to be calling this segment Caps or Facts.
Yeah.
And it's basically just scenarios, situations, stories, whatever the case may be in relationships. And we're going to ask each other from our perspective, is this caps or facts? Like maybe after work or after school and we're just talking and having a good little time.
Facts.
So that's what this is about.
All right, let's get into it.
Okay. You want to go first?
Yeah. So this one is a tweet. And someone she said, me, I'm done talking about it. Me, 42 seconds later. Let me just say this.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness.
That sounds familiar. Is that facts or cap?
Oh, facts with a capital facts. Like my wife, you. And then I'm talking to y'all, my wife. Like your stories have like different like seasons, right? Like they're series. They come in, they come out, they fade, then they come back in, they come back out. And another thing, you know what I'm saying? Don't let you be triggered on another thing. And you know what? It's like, it builds. So it's like, it's never really a period.
Yeah.
At most, it's a semicolon.
That's right.
But most of the time, it's a comma.
Yeah, I'm a story type of gal.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not ashamed. My story's long.
Because they have every detail.
Movies.
They have every detail. She'll get stuck on a detail. Like, did we have lunch at 12:30? It might have been 12:15. No.
And don't
'cause
let me
our
be
meeting
trying to make
ended
a
at 12:20.
point too,
Oh, man.
because let me just say this. No.
No, that's a fact. That's a fact. Okay, I got one. So is this cap or facts, right? So this is a lady, actually, she tweeted this. She said, I had no idea so much of my married life was going to be spent listening to my husband complain about the price of gas. Yet here we are. Cap or
That is
facts?
100% facts. Facts.
Come on.
Okay,
now.
like it's so hilarious. Okay, so let's say we're in the car, right? We're driving down. You see a gas price that's like $3.25.
Mhm.
Every single time, without fail, every time he will point it out.
Oh, yeah.
Every time. And it's like, it's almost like you're saving, you know, like on Instagram, how they do save for later.
Yeah.
I promise you, he is saving the gas stations for later.
Oh,
like if
listen.
you find anything that's a good deal,
Yeah.
I guarantee you he has to go back, or like,
For
it's like,
sure.
I got to get gas from there. So
Oh, there is nothing more disheartening than thinking you got a good deal. Oh, gas for $3.30. And you just think that, oh yeah, I did that. And then 2 miles down the block, you see gas for $3.25.
Yeah,
Like,
you
oh
heard.
man,
You
sick. So we hope y'all like this segment. This is Cap with Facts. And I guess both of them were facts for us.
Yeah, facts. I say facts a lot anyway, so
I don't know if I say cap or facts.
facts.
I think that I don't think I say either.
Bro, I don't really say cap, but I feel like I'm at that age where it's like, I don't know if it hit the same.
Yeah, yeah,
being like
yeah.
cap. No, I'm playing.
No, especially now.
I
everybody
date
uses-
myself. I'm really, not that old, but
Yeah,
if you're
facts.
feeling like, a difference between Gen Z and like
Millennials.
yeah.
I mean, because I don't relate. I feel like I'm more connected to Generation X. I do. I feel it. I feel
No,
like
I feel you.
I like walks.
I feel you. You again. You
I'm
got
a
that
bedtime
true
kind of guy. I like
old
bedtime.
soul.
Yeah.
Old soul.
Yeah, facts.
That's tough.
I just
though.
said facts casually.
Yeah, I'm telling you, facts is where it's at. But yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and get into our topic for today. So, I'm a Netflix type of gal. I love Netflix, although I've been kind of running out of shows lately because I keep.
You just
watching.
finished one.
I
What
know.
was-
Blood and Water.
Okay.
That's a good show.
Mm.
But anyway, so a while back, I was watching. They have a couple good, kind of partial reality TV shows. So this one I wouldn't necessarily classify it reality, but it's called The Ultimatum.
Mhm.
And the premise of the show is there's a set of couples that come in, and one of the people in the relationship is setting an ultimatum for the other person in the relationship.
Okay.
And so all of their reasons can vary as to why they're setting the ultimatum, but ultimately they're saying either you marry me or I'm gone type
So
of
that's
thing.
it. That's the ultimatum.
Yeah, that's the ultimatum. And so what's crazy about the show, though, is not that they're just going in and they're like, I'm setting this ultimatum. It's with context that when they come as all these different sets of couples, they are going to separate from their partner and have an opportunity to date somebody else during that time frame.
That sounds like a setup.
It really do. Like, this is crazy.
Not it.
It's crazy. So when the point of them dating someone else during that time is to see, like, I guess absence makes the heart grow fonder, or being able to see what it would be like to be with someone else. Is it something that is within the relationship? Why they're, not willing to move to that next step? And so it's kind of like a test run of seeing if it's if it's the relationship itself.
Okay.
And basically trying to create a scenario where it's like, do you want to be with me for the rest of your life, or do you want to try this with somebody else?
Can I, before you finish, I just don't see how me dating someone else is going to give me clarity about us. I don't get that.
I mean, for some people, it just probably depends on the situation. You know what I mean? Because
Okay.
in part, probably because the person that is on the maybe giving end of the ultimatum may have insecurities about why aren't you ready to marry me?
Okay.
Is it that you want to be with somebody else, or I guess maybe something along those lines. And so it's kind of being able to see, like, is that the holdup? You know what I mean? Would it be better with somebody else, or for that person that is giving the ultimatum? It's like, maybe you aren't the right person for me. Maybe there's someone that I meet that might fit better, and so now, they're ready to move. I'm ready to move. Let's go. You know what I mean? They're quicker at it. I don't know. I personally, I think I wouldn't want, I couldn't even imagine. I'm not even gonna lie, like being in that type of scenario.
Right.
Cause they're like literally watching each other. So it's like us going to somewhere and then being like, okay, go date somebody else. And and I'm sitting there watching like, nah, man, that's diabolical.
That ain't it.
But yeah, so that basically brings up kind of like, as I think about that show, I mean, ultimatums are a real thing. Like, even though the show is kind of an exaggeration of anything that would really happen in real life, ultimatums exist. People, kind of put them out there. And from my viewpoint, there's this aspect where I almost want to say I understand why people can feel like they have to go to ultimatum, because it's almost kind of like feeling like probably drawing a line in the sand or a boundary and saying, well, if you don't, do this, then this is my boundary. So if you don't do this, if you don't ask me for marriage, that's my end of the line. I don't want anything outside of that. And maybe they feel like they have spent a lot of time. For different people, it's going to be different thresholds. Somebody might be 6 months, somebody might be 2 years, or somebody might be 5 to 10. And they're like, well, I feel like you've had enough time to decide whether you want to, marry me or not. So I get why people do it, but I also think that it can be a form of relationship sabotage in a little bit, because when you set a ultimatum, it's like forcing someone's hand.
Right.
And so if that person does love the other person and does want to try to pursue marriage at some point, it kind of takes out the nuance of the conversation. The why, the why don't you, want to, why haven't you asked already? It kind of force a person against the wall. And I don't know anyone that makes really great decisions when you're up against the wall. You know what I mean? And I think in the long term, what ultimatums can create is a level of possible resentment. Everybody's different, so everyone might react differently. So even if the ultimatum is met, meaning I don't want to lose you, so I'm going to marry you, that person didn't necessarily arrive there themselves. And so that can cause possibly a level of resentment later on in the relationship. And so I don't know that ultimatums are really a great thing to kind of do. But it makes me think about and wonder, like, I know ultimatums be given both by men and women, but I think when like you hear about ultimatums, or even like maybe the premise of that show or whatnot, what do you think are some of the effects of pressure, of ultimatums on people in relationships? And then from maybe a male's point of view, I know that, you don't typically generalize anything. So, not necessarily from a generalization, but more so, how do you feel like that can, how do you feel that can affect maybe a man if he's being, kind of given an ultimatum?
Yeah. I mean, when I like hearing the concept of the show, I think, and I don't want to be too judgmental, but it's weird to me. It's weird to me. It's not just because the ultimatum is there, even though I agree with everything you said about ultimatum. Like I to be honest, I feel bad for someone who has to give an ultimatum, right? Because they don't really want to leave. If you did, you'd just be like, I don't really like how you move. This isn't worth my time. I'm out, right? But like the ultimatum is because like you want to exhaust all of the option. All right, here it is. If you don't give this, all right, then I'm gonna have to go. Right. And I think that so I can empathize with that. I think that if a man is given an ultimatum, or if I'm given an ultimatum, let's start there. If I was given an ultimatum, which everybody I was not, right? But if I was given an ultimatum, I think that depending on the conversations that might have preceded that ultimatum, I would feel that would determine how I would feel. Mm-hmm. So if there were not a lot of conversations, mm-hmm. there was not about very little questions asked, I might feel objectified a little bit. And by objectified, I mean that my experiences, who I am, like that's not much of your concern about what is probing my decision, my pace. Mm-hmm. And I'm not talking about someone who's been in a relationship, been through highs and lows, maybe for, I don't know how many years. Everybody's different, right? But for me, I think I would wonder why you're not curious as to what's driving me as much as you care about the end game or not.
Right.
Because for me, if I had a daughter, I would want her to be more concerned about what is driving his decisions than whether or not he's asked the question.
Right.
Because that's going to reveal where he's at emotionally. Right. And you kind of want to get behind that. Is it the fact that you're insecure about where you are in life and your hesitancy to maybe move to the next step is because of the inadequacy you may feel? Because that's something to understand.
Right.
Is it the fact that you have no intentions of being married in general? That's something.
Right.
But those are
two different,
completely different things, right? But they can show up the similar way without a conversation.
Right.
So I think that an ultimatum, I think, is unnecessary because I think, one, if there are certain conversations that are had, you have a pretty good sense of why that person is making the certain decisions that they're making, right? And I think that from that, you can be able to deduce what you should do without the need to say this or that, right? Because I think that each person should be making the decision in free will, right? So if you gave an ultimatum, your decision isn't out of free choice. The person gave you no other option. They either did what you said you wanted to do, so they asked you to marry, or they didn't.
Right.
You're left with what's left. That's not a decision.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So like, I think that, if I say here's 2 slices of pizza and I take one of them, you don't have a choice. You just got what's left. And I don't know why I chose pizza. Maybe that's on my mind. I'm a little hungry. But I think that that's kind of how I would think. And I think that for a man who may be given an ultimatum, I think that it could either make him defensive, man or woman. I think it either make him defensive. I think it could lead to resentment because relationship, the easiest part for me or for any is maybe like, I don't know, the wedding can be crazy, but like, because the finances and all of the stuff, but it can be a lot of different pieces. Like the wedding or asking somebody to marry you, like to me, those are easy parts of the relationship because it's just the question.
Right.
It's the life part. It's the, till death do us part. That like that is the more challenging thing. And so if someone is being pressured to make the decision, the upfront commitment, right? Then I think that the actual living out what that initial commitment communicated, I feel like that's going to be on some shaky ground because you didn't make that decision based off of conviction.
Right.
You made that decision because of the ultimatum.
Right. Pressure,
and that's the pressure. And I think that, I don't think that a relationship built off of someone having to have a gun, relatively speaking, or like you said, somebody pressed up against the wall to make a decision of a lifelong commitment. I don't think that's a recipe for success at all.
So I think also too, another thing on ultimatums is like when we try to go a little even below this surface, which I think, you already did and are hitting on. I think one thing that kind of shows the depth of what is actually happening as to why an ultimatum is being presented is that there is a need for more communication. And when I say that, communication and transparency, because I think communicating can be, hey, are you thinking about marriage? Where are we? What does our relationship represent to you right now? What are the next 5 years or 2 years or however, few months? That's communication.
Mm-hmm.
Transparency and vulnerability is, hey, what do you think about our relationship in the next 6 months or 2 years? I feel like I'm at a place where I am ready and I don't know where your head is. And because I don't know where your head is, it makes me feel insecure because I don't know whether or not you see a long-term future with me or not. And so my insecurity in this matter, I need help with that. I need your perspective to be able to understand what that is so that I'm not, overthinking it. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe I'm not. But to have that conversation, not only communicate, but then again, communicate the vulnerability of how that can make, someone feel or be insecure is important.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's on the part of the person who would give the ultimatum, who's seeking the clarity, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think both people should also be in pursuit of clarity, but one person may not be at the time in pursuit of marriage, if that makes sense.
Right,
and so
right.
for the person that is, it's important to communicate, what you're thinking and be vulnerable and transparent to how the lack of action or communication has, is brewing insecurity, right? But then on the person who is receiving or trying to understand where they fall within, the action of, saying I want this or I want a long-term committed marriage or whatnot, there is a need for communication and vulnerability back. Because the ultimatum exists because I feel there isn't any transparency or communication, because the ultimatum probably wouldn't exist if there was clarity there.
Right.
Because a person would either A, understand where they stand. And so just be like, it's not an ultimatum anymore. It's just either I just need to leave the relationship because this isn't what's best serving me, or as they understand the very nuanced position. Because I think for most people, like every scenario is different, but even for us, we dated for a long time, but it was not like because you didn't want to marry me, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I don't know, we might get into that, but it's more so, the age we started when we were dating and all these other things, school and whatnot. And so everybody's situation is going to be different. So there might be some really great reasons, good reasons as to why that person isn't necessarily moving at that moment. And so having a nuanced discussion about on both ends what each person needs or each person is feeling, I think allows for a true healthy experience. And it'll really help, I think, strengthen the relationship as a whole, because you're introducing good communication early on. Or I don't know if I would say early on, but you're introducing good communication before you get married. You're introducing the practice of vulnerability and transparency before getting married, which is important because you have to be vulnerable and transparent. Marriage does not work without that. It doesn't work without communication either. And so to kind of get ahead of the curve that you're going to have to learn anyway as you get into marriage is really probably important that you start there instead of kind of like setting an ultimatum that kind of like, again, like we said, kind of pushes someone up against the wall. Now everybody's tense. You know what I mean? You're tense because you have no clarity. They're tense because, now they feel like, whatever it may feel to kind of like have that ultimatum. And it could be as, like I said, it's nuanced as someone who really isn't committed and is kind of playing around, playing games, to someone who is just very nuanced and they have their own insecurities that have nothing to do with whether or not they think you're a good, wife or future husband or wife, but it's more something that they're having to work through, maybe with God, if there's, a Christian or, whatnot, or other reasons that people have. So, yeah.
No, I mean, I hear that. I agree. Because when it comes to ultimatums or when it comes to people kind of navigating that nuance that you're talking about, I think that even when I think of the word insecurity or insecure, right? Lack of security. And I think that security is something that each person is contributing to the relationship.
Right.
Because I think that it's very easy for either party to feel whether it's objectified or misunderstood, because we're coming from different perspectives. And it's not just gender differences, right? These are how people are raised and whatnot. And I think that sometimes when I hear some of the rhetoric, it's almost a dismissiveness to the natural growth and evolution of a person. And I think that when it came to our situation, right, we met at 18 in college. And so if you date throughout college, people's next question is, when are y'all getting married? Right. And it's like whether or not you are in a financial, because in my mind, I'm like, I'm graduating, praise God, right? You got student loans and I'm going straight into medical program, right? And so it's like, I won't making money before, and I'm not making money now, right? It's like you think about whether it's financing for a ring, whether it's financing for a wedding, right? Because now I'm coming from wealthy backgrounds. And then it's like, from a financial standpoint, I don't see myself as a provider, right? But I want it to be.
Right.
And I think that coming from that context, like I had an idea of what a husband was going to be. And it's not that I wasn't on my way, I just wasn't there yet. So it's like that intermediate period where you're still understanding yourself, you're still understanding your earning potential, you're still understanding how you fit into this world. And now the question is, where does the other person fit into my evolution? Right. And I think that sometimes it can feel like the process is undervalued, and you either show up ready to be, right? How much money do you make? You know, when people are talking about where you're taking out on dates,
right.
You know, it's like this aspect of like, that's a status question.
Yeah.
That is a status question. And so like that, where you are in that process, if that's the prerequisite, then there's an aspect where like, when I'm sitting in a place of where I feel is a transition, because I kind of dictate in my mind what success is, because I'm searching for, I've arrived there, whatever that feeling is. Right. And so I have my own definition in my mind. And so that definition might differ from yours. And so as I'm in pursuit of that definition, you know, you could be like, okay, what's going on? Right. So that's that ambiguity, that nuance, because there's this aspect where like, okay, he hasn't proposed. Does he have an intent to propose?
Right.
What is that? And so we had those conversations, right? It's like, I'm like, yo, I'm having a hard time with these classes, you know? And it's like this aspect of like how I'm thinking about certain things is like, I told you, it's like, this is the type of husband I want to be, and this, that, and the third. And I think for us, the conversation, I want to say it was 2019 that we kind of really was talking deep about it. But I think that for me, having that conversation, I can speak for myself, was clear for me to understand how you viewed marriage and how your definition of marriage was much easier to accept than mine. Because it allowed both of us to be as we were and not in a pending state of, we don't even know when we'll get there, but like it's somewhere up there in them late 20s that maybe will arrive. I don't know. But like your definition of it was like, right. And I think that allowed me to have a certain level of assurance that I was placing on myself of wanting to be a specific type of man. Like, I want you to like, we can go out on a lot of different dates. You know what I'm saying? We can go on trips. We can experience life to the fullest. And not that we can't get there at some point. I just couldn't offer that now. And you're like, I'm cool with that.
Right.
I don't mind that. I'm like, we ain't gonna be able to get no house when we get married. You know what I'm saying? I'm cool with that. We can rent. It's like,
right. Because it was about you. You know what I mean? It wasn't necessarily about what, because you could offer a lot, you know, you offered a lot. And that's why it was about you, your personality, what you meant to me.
Right.
But it wasn't about you having been arrived and being everything that the world would say makes a great status,
Mhm.
you know,
Right.
at that point, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Because again, we're coming out of college,
Right.
you know what I
Right.
mean? And so
Right.
we're going through this process together, we're
Mhm.
growing together. And I think for me too, it was like kind of, I was thankful for the conversation that we had because like we were talking about security. I think more than anything, having the conversation and being able to talk about what's your viewpoint and you being able to explain that to me and me being able to understand like, I see, you know, the pressure that exists that might not even, I'm not putting that on you, right? But it exists already.
Right.
So imagine if I'm putting that even more on you, you know what I mean? If you're already feeling it and then I'm like, yeah, you know, doubling down on that. I couldn't even imagine. And so there's an aspect where it's like, I wanted and I needed security, right? But in us being able to have the conversation about it, I got that because I understood where your mind was as it related to me, you know what I mean? And that you did want marriage and you saw that future as well. But there were some things that, you know, kind of we both understood kind of needed to happen before we went fully in there as well. But because we had that conversation, I wasn't left kind of reaching for whatever I could come up with. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Because that can happen.
That
It's like if you don't know, then it leaves the door open for your imagination. And everybody's imagination is different. So someone could think, well, because you aren't marrying me, or because you aren't saying that you want to marry me, that means you this, that, the third. And it's like, so taking away those avenues for the mind to have its way of creative thought. You know?
I got a way of describing it. How I see it is like, before there's an ultimatum, you want to make sure that y'all are both running in the same direction. And I think that if you're dating, you want to make sure you're running in the same direction. So if marriage is something that you're heading towards, remember, like when we say marriage, we didn't say a wedding. Right. So if marriage, a lifelong relationship, monogamous relationship, if that's where you're heading or desiring to go, then making sure that the person that you're dating is at least running in that direction. Now, you might be on different pace. You might be running a different pace, and that's fine. The next part is understanding what's informing the pace. Maybe it's training. Maybe one came from a 2-parent household, one came from a single parent household. And so it's a lack of, this is what I want because I didn't get it, but I don't necessarily know what it looks like to get on the other side of that. Maybe it's just training. Maybe it's this aspect of what I mean, it could be different reasons for the pace, right? For me, it wasn't this aspect. I grew up in a 2-parent household. I was blessed for that. For me, it was this aspect of like, I had a definition of manhood in my mind and I was chasing that to be something for you, when it was this aspect of like, it's way more nuanced than just that. It's like, who are you becoming as a person is equally or even more important than who I'm becoming as a provider or as a citizen or whatever the case may be. And so that was the reason why we had different pace. But once we can get on the same page, now we're running together, right? So we're not only in the same direction, but we have a similar rhythm, right? And so I think that that's important. I feel like the ultimatum is when y'all are going in completely different directions. Because if you're going in the same direction, there's no ultimatum needed. I want to go there. No convincing. What's understood don't need to be explained, right? But there's an aspect that like the ultimatum is rooted in, we're not heading in the same direction, but I want to. And I have no other way of controlling you outside of trying to give you a reason to like, to kind of do something the way I want it done. And I feel like if you're running the same page or if you're running in the same direction, you won't need to try to convince anybody this, that, and the third. It just comes to a conversation of understanding where each other's at, to understand why we're at a different pace. And now is willingness to like, do I want to walk with that person so that we can be on the same page? Or do I want to try to find someone who's running at my speed? And once again, there is no quote unquote right or wrong. You know, it's between you and your maker.
Right.
It's between you and your maker. So there's no judgment zone here. But there is also nothing wrong with getting on the same page and going at someone else's pace if you believe in not just their potential, right? But in who they're becoming. The trajectory of who they're becoming.
That's big on who they're becoming. Because sometimes it's not even, like you said, about potential. I mean, I guess maybe it's a nuance in, words, but like who a person is becoming has everything to do, especially because, I mean, we're Christians. And so we both know we've been through process after process. I mean, our journeys, each season in our life, we're growing, we're learning something new, we're becoming new people. And in our pursuit of Christ, we know that there's flaws that God is ironing out of us. There's things, patience, fruits of the Spirit that God is trying to put in us and grow us and mold us and shape us. And so, if you're willing to be patient, because in any relationship, you're going to have to do that. In terms of like marriage, you have to do that. You have to be patient with one another to go through that process and that journey. And so, like you said, it might be a different pace, but if you feel that that person is a man or woman of God, at heart, and you're willing to, go during that journey with them, then like you said, as long as you're on going in the same direction, the pace might, change, and the pace might change quickly. You know what I mean? Like it might be, not too far after y'all have a conversation that now the pace is changing a little bit or shifting. But you definitely want marriage to be conviction based. I think that's 1,000%. huge thing. It's like, you don't want marriage to come, or really any decision, to be honest with you, in life. But marriage, particularly because it's something that is symbolic of God. You want that to be very much so a decision based off of conviction. And anything else is kind of treading into, interesting waters, because you don't want to enter marriage without the covering of God. And I'm not saying that you won't have the covering of God if you just enter marriage, but I'm saying that you want to make sure that you're convicted and that God is pointing you in that direction with that person, because that's the most important thing. So check first with God before you check with even the person, because God will help guide you and help you see whether or not this is the right person or not that you even need to be pursuing. But also when you're checking with that person, make sure y'all are praying about it together. Make sure that there's some level of integrating God in that conversation for sure, because that's going to be important.
But what you're describing, I think, is just so profound, babe. It really is, because the marriage has taken on, and I know, all right, because there was a Drake and the Kendrick stuff, right? And so, but Drake had a good bar. I don't remember the name of the song, but he said, "Don't tell me that you model if you ain't been in Vogue." Right. And basically it's like, we're in an era now where you can be a self-ascribed model. You know what I'm saying? Like, you took a couple of pictures of me for my LinkedIn page. Technically.
You say you're a model now?
Technically.
I mean, you were looking like a model.
I mean, I had on my suit. Hey, girl, hold on. I wish I had like a better sound, because the sound, I was like, I don't know if that fit. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, like he said, don't tell me that you model. There's a standard, right? And so just because you taking pics does not make you a model. And I feel like just because you said I do does not mean you're in a covenant. It might mean you're legally married, but does not mean you're in a covenant, because you don't enter into a covenant between two individuals. You enter into a covenant with God and two individuals. And I think of that's the ultimate definition in my book, I guess, our book, because we're Christian, of marriage. And so what happens is the view, the definition, the perspective of marriage gets kind of diluted down to the average, to the what goes wrong, right? The like people's view of marriage can sometimes be either the extreme of fairy tales, or to the statistics of 2/3 of marriages end in divorce or something like that, right? And I feel like when it comes down to the decision that is being made between two humans, right? Like, we're going to approach it contractually, Like, that's why we see marriage as legally binding, right? This aspect of like, all right, you did your part, I did my part. Okay, you didn't do your part, I'm out. I didn't do my part, I'm out. Right. But in a covenant, what holds together isn't necessarily the what you did, what I did. It's the ultimate covering, like you were just saying, of God. And so when there's an aspect of determining, for example, is this someone to marry? Before I'm even trying to give an ultimatum, it's like only God knows the true trajectory of this person. Right. Their heart. Their mind. Right. I heard something from Darius Daniels not too long ago. He says sometimes we have this idea that change is always positive. He says change can go either way. People can change for the better, change for the worse. Right. True. It's like, who knows which direction somebody's heading. Right. That's true. You know, it's like, technically, there was a divorce lawyer. I know I keep using these examples, a whole bunch of different examples. There was a divorce lawyer. He described this aspect of like, whenever you want to see a divorced couple kind of go into a state of harmony for a few seconds, he says, ask them how they met. Don't all origin stories of a marriage begin with some type of positive? Some type of positive. Right. Some type of positive. And I think that, again, not just the trajectory, but when you're including God, he's covering and holding the two people together. And so ultimately, I think that like when it comes to the ultimatum, like if you think about the role conviction plays, you think about the role God plays, an ultimatum just gets in the way. Right. And I think that when it comes to what the ultimate need is that might prime somebody for an ultimatum, I think that it's best to go to the original source and then go directly to I guess you could say the plug, right? If the source is God and then the plug is the person that you're with, then it's like this aspect of like you're having those conversations with both the manufacturer and the product itself. Right. And I think that will provide the clarity that doesn't require that tactic. Right. That tactic. Nah, that covering is powerful. That's good. I think that's a great way to, end it, because you don't play these sound effects, boy. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna find some better ones. Because the ones they got on here, default, just don't hit. But okay, I'm sorry, that was a little commercial. See, now you gotta end on the claps. Okay, because you just ended on like it. I did take down the mood. Yeah, you're right. You're right. There you go. Okay. Yo, can we see? What have we got into? Oh, next time we could be like, we're in front of a live studio. Okay, we lying. Oh man, you need help, man. Actually, I don't have soul food today. You don't? I forgot to look up the quote. How do you got our soul food? Soul food for the day. For real. I'm gonna come up with a quote off top. Off top? All right. Why you off top? So I heard this from a philosopher by the name of Glorilla. She said, at the end of the day gotta end. Oh. That's our soul food for today. That's the soul food for the day. At the end of the day gotta end. Oh my. Oh, that's the wrong thing. Wrong button. Yep. Nah, facts. But I think until next time, we're gonna have to leave with that. That's gonna have to be the fold. No, but I think honestly, I feel like what you left us, that last bit in terms of the just the ultimatum was really good to just kind of sit on and reflect on, and so next time we'll have our soul food. But we hope that this podcast was helpful or interesting, or, can be something that can kind of allow you to have your own conversations, because this is always just our opinions, our thoughts, our viewpoint through the perspective that we have in this world. But that doesn't mean that you don't see it different. You might see it differently, and so we encourage conversation with your loved ones, with your significant other, and hope that this is able to help start something healthy, a healthy conversation for you. I love that. Until next time, we'll see y'all next week. I love this, bruh. You know what I didn't get to use? I didn't get to use that one, and then I was like, man, once upon a time, that ain't it. Okay.